Well, hey, everybody, I want to thank you for joining us for the Building Hope for Tomorrow information meetings. This is a campaign, a giving campaign that we're going to be focusing on through the month of November, and I want to make sure you have all the information that you need so that you know what part God might be asking you to play in this particular campaign. If you were here for the first weekend of the campaign, November 2nd and 3rd, I preached through a Bible story that really kind of sets up what we're trying to do with this campaign. If you didn't get the opportunity to hear that message, I encourage you to get on our YouTube page and take in that entire message. But I'll try to just briefly sum it up, really. It happens in 2 Kings chapter 3, the armies of Israel and the armies of Judah and the armies of Edom are going to war against the king of Moab. And they're trying to outflank the Moabite army, and they end up for 7 days going through a wilderness, and they run out of water. And so all the animals, all the horses, they don't have any water to drink. It's bad news. And the soldiers don't have enough water to drink, and it's bad news. So they decide to cry out to God for help. They get the prophet Elisha, and Elisha shows up, and the word of the Lord is given to the armies of Israel and Judah through the prophet Elisha. Dig ditches all over this dry stream bed. If you are a soldier who's been marching for 7 days without enough water, if you're an animal who's been marching for 7 days in the desert, in the wilderness without enough water, the last thing that you want to do is dig a ditch. But this is the word of the Lord. And the Lord keeps going and sort of says, here's what's going to happen if you just start digging. Even though you will not see any rain or any wind, this stream bed will be filled with water. And so they go to work, digging ditches, digging ditches, digging ditches. They probably slept really well that night, tired and exhausted. And when they wake up the next morning, look what's happened. At the time of the regular morning sacrifice, water came flowing from the direction of Edom and covered the ground. And as you keep reading through it, it says it fills up the ditches that have been dug. And the animals have water to drink, and the armies have water to drink, and then God ends up winning a miraculous victory. Here's kind of the way I want you to think about it. They dig ditches one day, and then the next morning, God fills those ditches. God performs something miraculous. God shows up in a powerful way, and a victory is won. Here's the way you might kind of summarize the entire thing. Dig ditches today and see God provide tomorrow. Building Hope for Tomorrow is the name of this campaign. What God is asking us to do today is dig ditches. And it's not going to be sexy. And it may not feel like a whole lot of fun. But it's going to be a really important thing for us to do right now to prepare for what God is going to provide for us tomorrow. Dig ditches today, see God provide tomorrow. Can you dig it?
You got to go dig those holes.
You dig?
I dig.
You dig?
I dig. We all dig.
Can you dig that?
You dig.
Dig it, sister.
Dig it on, dig it. Dig it on. Dig it on, dig it. Dig it on.
I can dig it.
That's good. I can dig it.
Go, 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 go. Dig, 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 dig.
I can dig that.
I dig your style.
I can dig that, man.
Dig it on, dig it. Dig it on.
I have to do it. You know what's coming. Can you dig it?
Dig.
Yep, dig. It's that part of the job. Digging.
So we're going to try to have a little bit of fun with this campaign, hopefully that you know it. Thank you to the production team for putting that video together. Can you dig it is going to kind of be our catchphrase, but every time you hear the phrase or the question, can you dig it, it's reminding us God's calling us to dig ditches today, to set us free, to do what God is calling us to do, and to be who God is calling us to be, and to go where God's calling us to go tomorrow. Building hope for tomorrow. Can you dig it? I want to talk a little bit about finances now. We are sitting on some assets here in Ankeny. Here's the current asset situation for the Hope Ankeny campus. Total assets here at Hope Ankeny is $18 million. How did we get there? Well, we started way back in 2010. We purchased 20 acres of land here on 36th Street. And then in 2013, we were worshiping at Northview Middle School. We were doing a bunch of ministry at a place called The Station, a warehouse that we had renovated and turned into offices and midweek space, and had a Saturday night service there. And we were about 700 people on the weekend. And we decided it was time for us to have a permanent home for hope in Ankeny. So we did a giving campaign called Building Hope Together. That was for phase one. The worship center, the offices, the nursery, the prayer tower, the lower level harbor and kitchen and classrooms, that sort of thing was all phase one back in 2013. And this congregation pledged or gave $2 million over the course of 3 years. They pledged to give $2 million. Quickly, by the time that campaign was over, we realized we were out of room. We could use more room. So in 2018, we did another campaign. It was called Building to a Hope Beyond, and $4.2 million was pledged. 2021, coming out of COVID, we did another campaign, and it was called Bringing Hope to Life. That was to finish our phase 2 edition. $1.7 million came in there. You add all that together, it's $7.9 million, which is pretty awesome. That's the total pledged, but how much really came in? Because people move away, or people stop coming to the church, or people die. So it's going to be less, but how much less? Is it going to be 90% of what was pledged, 95%, 85%? What it'll be? So here, these 3 campaigns, the total pledged ended up being 141% of what was pledged. So that's $10,571,000 that this congregation has faithfully and generously given since 2013. If you take $10.5 million and you subtract it from our $18 million of asset, the difference there is $7.5 million, and that is our debt. And almost all of that debt comes back from our phase 1 campaign. We raised $2 million, the 750 of us who were around. We raised $2 million, which was awesome, and it was about a $9 million project. And so when we got to the next projects, we didn't want to go further into debt. We wanted to get the money up front so that we wouldn't add to our debt. We've added about $500,000. We also purchased the Johnson Farm, that 5 acres on the corner of Ash and 36th Street. So we have $7.5 million of debt, and we're doing a giving campaign called Building Hope for Tomorrow. What are we going to build, Pastor Scott? Well, our buildings are about 10 years old. So the real building that we're going to be doing is improving on the existing buildings. And we have committed to spending no more than $500,000 on some of these improvements. What improvements, you might ask? Well, here in the worship center, we have a projector that's about 10 years old. Does it have another year in it? Does it have 6 months in it? It's going to be time to replace that really soon. And the best technology for replacing a projector these days is not to get another projector, but it's instead to invest in an LED wall. So we would like to remodel the worship center so the front of the worship center looks a lot like the front of the reservoir. We'll have to take out this big white wall behind me that we project onto normally. Instead, we'll hang an LED wall. The whole front and the middle section of the front of the worship center will be black. We'll be able to do additional acoustical treatment there, and we'll do some other acoustical treatment and sound engineering in the worship center to make the sound and the audio visual as up to date and as excellent as it can possibly be. We're going to be redoing the stage a little bit. If you look at that image, you'll see instead of having steps all the way around the stage, there'll just be a couple of places where there are steps. That'll give us a little more room to do the kinds of things that we need to do in a worship service or in special events. We also, the classrooms down in the harbor, have a really special way of making them sound good that is not special at all. It needs to be redone. So it's time for us to do that. We need an outdoor playground here for Hope Kids, for the preschool, for the community. So we want to make an outdoor playground. And then finally, we want to finish the gathering area inside the student entrance, which is the west side of the lower level of our building. There's arcade games there. We want to make this a really nice gathering space with booths and chairs and tables where people can just kind of hang out and connect, and that's really important. So all of those things, and we don't want to spend more than $500,000 on that because we have $7.5 million of debt. Let me talk to you a little bit, just break down how this debt came to be. So almost all of it is from phase one back in 2013. $500,000 internal loan through Hope, and we're not being charged interest on that. So that's a real significant gift. And then we have the rest is a $7 million loan. It's a bank loan, and right now it's financed at 2.5%. If you pay attention to the financial world at all, you know that in the last several years, interest rates have been going up and up and up. We were able to lock in this 2.5% interest rate before all of that happened, but in 2 years, it's going to be time for us to refinance, and it might be a very different kind of reality at that point. Let me show you a little bit about the current budget. So our budget year at Hope starts in September, and it runs through August. So the September 2024 to August 2025 budget, our annual budget that was just approved in September at the annual meeting is just over $1.9 million. One of the line items in our budget is to pay for the interest on the loan. That 2.5% interest, we pay just a little bit more than that is what we are trying to pay down. So it comes to $188,000 a year. So basically 10% of our budget is going to pay for the interest on our loan. And this has been the case for quite a while, since 2015. Now I went and I looked. The last year, full budget year that we had at Hope Ankeny before we moved into this building was the 2013-2014 budget year. And at that time, we were renting Northview Middle School for worship on Sunday mornings, and we were leasing a warehouse space that we called the station. That was, we had access to that 24/7. It was our space. But when you combine the total rentals for the school and for the station, not counting utilities, not counting facility staff, just the rental, annual rental fee for us back in 2014, it was $135,000 a year. Now we have 25 acres, 50,000 square feet of ministry space, and we're paying $188,000 a year. That's the interest on the loan. So almost 10 years of difference and only a little over $50,000 of difference. Was it a wise move for us to say, let's build a building even if it means we have to take out a loan? Absolutely. Think of all the ministry that we're able to do. Think of the growth that we've had over the years because we've had these assets, these ministry assets of a building and land that would have significantly changed how we do ministry if we were still leasing or renting spaces. If we tried to lease or rent the kind of space that we have here now, it's going to be a lot more than $188,000 a year. Yeah, but Scott, you still have $7 million of debt. Okay, you're right, absolutely. So let's talk about that. This is today's budget, but tomorrow's budget, like if we do nothing, if we just keep things the way they are, in a couple of years we have to refinance. So currently it's at 2.5% and it's $188,000 annually in our budget. If we have to refinance, when we have to refinance in 2 years, we don't know exactly what that number is going to be, but we're 99.9% confident it's going to be more than 2.5%. The people that are in this world tell me it's going to be a minimum 5%, so it's going to double. So if we do nothing, in 2 years, our annual budget, instead of having 10% of our budget, $188,000, go to pay the interest, it's going to be $376,000, getting closer to 20% of our budget. If it's 6%, it's $451,000. If it's 7%, it's $526,000. It is the right time for us to dig ditches and reduce the debt that we have here at Hope Ankeny. Now, for every $1 million that we are able to reduce the debt, here's what that's going to mean for our annual budget. If the percentages are here, so 2.5%, it would reduce it to 163,000. 5% reduces it to 326,000, 6%, 391,000. Every year, for every $1 million that we reduce the budget, we could potentially save this much every year to use for other kinds of ministry. Here's a couple of ways that you could think about this. In summary, here are some ways for you to think about this. If we cut our debt in half, the $7 million that we are financing currently, if we cut it in half, the interest rate could double from 2.5% to 5%, and our budget would stay the same, that $188,000. Right? That's one way to think about it. Another way to think about it, if we eliminate all $7 million, it would free up $188,000 a year to be used for other kinds of ministry.